So guys, continuing the part 2, an adaptable concept. The smoke screen can be practiced on a number of levels, all playing on the psychological principles of distraction and misdirection. One of the most effective smoke screen is the noble gestures. People want to believe apparently noble gestures are genuine, for the belief is pleasant. They rarely notice how deceptive these gestures can be. The art dealer Joseph Duane was once confronted with a terrible problems. The millionaires who had paid so dearly for Duane's painting were running out of well space, and with inheritance taxes getting ever higher, it seemed unlikely that they would keep buying. The solution was the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., which Duane helped created in 1937 by getting Andrew Millen to donate his collection to it. The National Gallery was the perfect front for Duane. In one gesture, his clients avoided taxes, cleared 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 wall space for new purchase, and reduced the number of paintings on the market, maintaining the upward pressure on their prices. All this while the donors created the appearance of being public benefactors. Another effective smoke screen is the pattern, the establishment of a series of actions that seduce the victim into believing you will continue in the same way. The pattern plays on the psychology of anticipation. Our behavior conforms to patterns, or so we like to think. In 1878, the American robber Baron J. Could created a company that began to threaten the monopoly of the telegraph company Western Union. The directors of Western Union decided to buy goods company up. They had to spend a hefty sum, but they figured they had managed to rid themselves of an irritating competitor. A few months later, though Gold was it again, complaining he had been treated unfairly, he started up a second company to compete with Western Union and its new acquisitions. The same thing happened again. Western Union bought him out to shoot him up. Soon the pattern began for the third time, but now good went for the juggler. He suddenly staged a bloody takeover struggle and managed to again complete control of Western Union. He had established a pattern that had tricked the company's directors into thinking his goal was to be bought out at a handsome rate. Once they paid him off, they relaxed and failed to notice that he was actually playing for higher stakes. The pattern is powerful in that it deceives the other person into expecting the opposite of what you are really doing. Another psychological weakness on which to construct a smoke screen is the tendency to mistake appearance for reality. The feelings that if someone seems to belong to your group, their belonging must be real. These habits make the seamless blend a very effective front. The trick is simple. You simply blend in those around you. The better you blend, the less superior you become. During the Cold War of 1950s and 60s, as is now notorious, a slew of British civil servants passed secrets to the Soviets. They went undetected for years because they were apparently decent chaps, had gone to all the right schools, and fit the old boy network perfectly. Blending in is the perfect smoke screen for spying. The better you do it, the better you can conceal your intentions. Remember, it takes patience and humility to dull your brilliant colors, to put on the mask of the inconspicuous. It is often your unreadability that draws people to you and make you appear a person of power. Image: a sheep's skin. A sheep never mirrors. A sheep never deceives. A sheep is magnificently dumb and docile. With a sheepskin on his back, a fox can pass right into the chicken coop. Authority: have you ever heard a skillful general who intends to surprise a citadel, announcing his plan to his enemy? Conceal your purpose and hide your progress. Do not disclose the extent of your designs until they cannot be opposed, until the combat is over. Win the victory before you declare the war. In a word, imitate those war like people whose designs are not known except by the ravaged, country through which they have passed. Reversal: no smoke screen, red herring, false sincerity, or any other diversionary device will succeed in counseling your intentions. If you already have an established reputation for deception, and as you get older and achieve success, it often becomes increasingly difficult to disguise your cunning. Everyone knows you practice deception, persist in playing knave, and you run the risk of seeming the rankest hypocrite, which will severely limit your room the maneuver. In such case, it is better to own up, to appear the honest Rose, or better the repentant Rose. Not only will you be admired for your frankness, but most wonderful and strange of all, you will be able to continue your stratagems. As P.T. Barnum, the 19th century kings of humbuggery grew older, he learned to embrace his reputation as a grand deceiver. At one point, he organized a buffalo hunt in New Jersey, complete with Indians and few imported buffalo. He publicized the hunt as genuine, but it came off as so completely fake that the crowd, instead of getting angry and asking for their money back, was greatly amused. They knew Burman pulled tricks all the time. That was the secret of his success, and they loved him for it. Learning a lesson from this affair, Burman stopped counseling all of his devices, even revealing his deception in a tell-all autobiography as Kierkegaard wrote, the world wants to be deceived. Finally, although it is wiser to divert attention from your purpose by presenting a bland, familiar exterior, there are times when the colorful, conspicuous creature is the right divisory tactic. The great Charlton mountebanks of 17th and 18th century Europe used humor and entertainment to divide their audiences. Dazzled by a great show, the public would not notice the charlatan's real intentions. Thus, the stark, stark charlatans himself would appear in town in a night black coach drawn by black horses. Clowns, tropes, walkers, and star entertainers would accompany him, pulling people into his demonstrations of elixirs and quick potions. The Charlton made entertainment seem like the business of the day. The business of the day was actually the sale of the auxiliaries, elixirs, and quick potions. Spectacle and entertainment clearly and excellent device to concealing your intentions, but they cannot be used identifiably. The public grows tired and suspicious and eventually catches on the trick, and indeed the Charltons had to move quickly from town to town before word spread that the potions were useless and the entertainment a trick. Powerful people with bland exteriors, on the other hand, the Italians, the Rothschilds, has Celsius can practice their deceptions in the same place throughout their lifetimes. Their acts never wear thin and rarely causes suspicions. The colorful smoke screen should be used courteously then and only when the occasion is the right. So guys, this is third law. This law is cancelling your intentions. Go the next law is always say less than necessary. So start judgment. When you are trying to impress people with words, the more you say, the more common you appear and the less in control. Even if you are saying something banal, it will seem original if you make it vague, open-ended, and sphinx like. Powerful people impress and intimidate by saying less. The more you say, the more likely you are say something foolish. Transgression of the law. Genius Marcus, also known as Corleone, was a great military hero of ancient Rome. In the first half in the first half of the 5th century BC, he won many important battles, saving the city from calamity, calamity time and time again. Because he spent most of his time on the battlefield, few Romans knew him personally, making him something of a legendary figure. In 454 BC, Corleone decided it was time to exploit his reputation and enter politics. He stood for election to the high rank of consul. Candidates for this position traditionally made a public address early in the race, and when curriculums come before the people, he began by displaying the dozen of scare he had accumulated over 17 years of fighting for Rome. Few in the crowd really heard the lengthy speech that followed. Those scare proof of his valor and patriotism moved the people to tears. Corleone's election seemed certain. When the polling day arrived, however, Corleone made an entry into the forum, escorted by the entire Senate by the city's partition. The aristocracy, the common people who saw these were distributed by such a blustering show of confidence on election day. And then Corleone spoke again, mostly addressing the wealthy citizen who had accompanied him. His words were arrogant and insolent, claiming certain victory in the vote. He boasted of his battlefield exploits, made sore jokes that appealed only to the partisan, voiced angry accusations against his opponents, and speculated on the risks he would bring to Rome. This time the people listened. They had not realized that he, legendary soldier, was also a common braggart. News of Corleone's second speech spread quickly through Rome, and the people turned out in great numbers to make sure he was not elected. Defeated, Corleone returned to the battlefield, bitter and vowing revenge on the common folk who had voted against him. Some weeks later, a large shipment of grain arrived in Rome. The Senate was ready to distribute this food to the people for free. But just as they were preparing to vote on the question, Corleone appeared on the scene and took the Senate floor. The distribution, they argue, would have a harmful effect on the city, as a full several senators appeared won over, and the vote of the distribution fell into doubt. Corleone did not stop there and went on to condemn the concept of democracy itself. He advocated getting rid of the people's representatives, the tribunes, and turning over the governing of the city to the partisans. When word of Corleone's later speech reached the people, their anger knew the bounds. The tribunes were sent to the Senate to demand the Corleone appear before them. He refused. Riots broke out all over the city. The Senate, fearing the people's wrath, finally voted in favor of the grain distribution. The tribunes were appeased, but the people still demanded the Corleone speak to them and apologize. If he repented and agreed to keep his opinions to himself, he would be allowed to return to the battlefield. Corleone did appear one last time before the people, who listened to him in rapt silence. He started slowly and softly, but as the speech went on, he became more and more blunt. Yet again he hurled insults. His, his tone was arrogant, his expression disdainful. The more he spoke, the anger the people became. Finally, they shouted him down and silenced him. The tribunes condemned Corleone to death and ordered the magistrates to take him at once to the top of the Terrapian rocks and throw him over. The delighted crowd second the decision. The partisans, however, managed to intervene, and the sentence was commuted to a lifelong banishment. When the people found out the Rome's great military hero would never return to the city, they celebrated in the streets. In fact, no one had ever seen such a celebration, not even after the defeat of a foreign enemy. Interpretation. Before he enters into politics, the name of Corleone evoked away. His battlefield accomplishment showed him as a man of great bravery. Since the citizen knew little about him, all kinds of legends become attached to his name. The moment he appeared before the Roman citizen, however, and spoke his mind, all that grandeur and mystery vanished. He bragged and blustered like a common soldier. He insulted the slandered people as if he felt threatened and insecure. Suddenly, he was not at all what the people had imagined. The, the discrepancy between the legend and the reality proved immensely disappointing to those who wanted to believe in their hero. The more Corleone said, the less powerful he appeared. A person who cannot control his words shows that he cannot control himself and is unworthy of respect. Had Corleone said less, the people would never have had cause to be offended by him, would never have known his true feelings. He would have maintained his powerful aura, would certainly have been elected consul, and would have been able to accomplish his anti-democratic goals. But the human tongue is a beast that few can master. It strains constantly to break out of its cage, and if it not tamed, it will run wild and cause you grief. Power cannot accrue to those who securant their treasurer of words. Oysters open completely when the moon is full, and when the crab sees once, it throws a pieces of stone or seaweed into it, and the oyster cannot close again, so that it serves the crab for meat. Such is the fate of him who opens his mouth too much and thereby puts himself at the mercy of the listener. Observance of the law. In the court of Louis XIV, nobles and ministers would spend days and nights debating issues of state. They would confer, argue, make a break, alliance, and argue again until finally the critical moment arrived. Two of them would be chosen to represent the different sides to Louis himself, who would decide what should be done. After these persons were chosen, everyone would argue some more. How should the issue be perhaps? What would appeal to Louis? What would annoy him? At what time of day should the representative approach him? And in what part of the Versailles place? What expression should they have on their faces? Finally, after all this was settled, the fateful moment would finally arrive. The two men would approach Louis, always a delicate matter, and when they finally had his ear, they would talk about the issue at hand, spelling out the option in detail. Louis would listen in silence, a most enigmatic look on his face. Finally, when he had finished his presentation and had asked for the king's opinion, he would look at them both and say, "I shall see." Then he would walk away. The ministers and courtiers would never hear another word on this subject from the king. They would simply see the result. Weeks later, when he would come to a decision and act, he would never bother to consult them on the matter again. Interpretation. Louis XIV was a man of very few words. His most famous remark is, "Litet sist moi." Nothing could be more pithy yet more eloquent. His infamous "I shall see" was one of several extremely short, perhaps that he would apply to all manners of requests. Louis was not always this way. As a young man, he was known for talking at length, delighting in his own eloquence. His later taciturnity was self-imposed, an act, a mask. He used to keep everybody below him off balance. No one knew exactly where he stood or could predict his reaction. No one could try to deceive him by saying what they thought he wanted to hear, because no one knew what he wanted to hear. As they talk on and on to the silent Louis, they revealed more and more about themselves, information he would later use against them to greater effect. In the end, Louis' silence kept those around him terrified and under his thumb. It was one of the foundations of his power, as Saint Simonian wrote. No one knew as well as he how to sell the words, his smile, even his glance. Everything in him was valuable because he created difference, and his majesty was enhanced by the separations of his words. Keys to power. Power is in many ways a game of appearance, and when you say less than necessary, you inevitably appear greater and more powerful than you are. Your silence will make other people uncomfortable. Humans are machines of interpretation and expression. They have to know what you are thinking. When you are carefully control what you reveal, they cannot precise your intention or your meaning. Your short answer and silence will put them on the defensive, and they will jump in, nervously filling the silence with all kinds of comments that will reveal valuable information about them and their weakness. They will they will leave a meeting with you feelings as if they had been robbed, and they will go home and ponder you with every word. This extra attention to your brief comments will only add to your power. Saying less than necessary is not for kings and statements only. In most areas of life, the less you say, the more profound and mysterious you appear. As young man, the artist Andy Warhol had the revelation that it was generally impossible to get people to do what you wanted them to do by talking to them. They would turn against you, subvert your wishes, disobey you out of sheer, sheer perversity. He once told a friend, I learned that you actually have more power when you shut up. In his later life, Warhol employed this strategy with great success. His interviews were exercised in oracular speech. He would say something vague and ambiguous, and the interviewer would twist in circles trying to figure it out. Imagine there was something profound behind his often meaningless praise. Warhol rarely talked about his work. He let others do the interpreting. He claimed to have learned this technique from that master of enigma, Marcel Duchamp. Another 20th century artist, artist who realized early on that the less he said about his work, the more people talk about it, and the more they talk, the more valuable his work becomes. In his later life, Warhol employed this strategy with great success. His interviews were exercised in oracular speech. He would say something vague and ambiguous, and the interviewer by saying less than necessary, you create the appearance of meaning and power. Also, the less you say, the less risk you run to saying something foolish, even dangerous. In 1825, a news craze, Tsar Nicholas I ascended the throne of Russia. A, a rebellion immediately broke out, led by liberals, demanding that the country modernize, that its industries and civil structures catch up with the rest of Europe. Brutally crushing this rebellion, Nicholas I sentenced one of its leaders, Conradi Relief, to death. One of the day of the execution, Relief stood on the glows. The noose around his neck, the trapdoor, trapdoor opened, but as relief dangled, the rope black, dashing him into the ground. At the time, events like these were considered sign of providence or heavenly will, and a man saved from execution this way was usually pardoned as Reveal got to his feet, bruised and dirtied, but believing his neck had been saved. He called out to the crowd, "You see, in Russia they don't know how to do anything properly, not even how to make rope." A messenger immediately went to the winter place with news of the fell hanging. Vexed by this disappointed turnabout, Nicholas I nevertheless began to sign the pardon. But then, did Reveal say anything after the miracle? The scars asked the messenger. Sire, the messenger replied, he had that in Russia they don't even know how to make rope. In that case, said the Tsar, let us prove the country, and he tore up the pardon. The next day, Revel was hanged again. This time, the rope did not break. Learn the lesson. Once the words are out, you cannot take them back. Keep them under control. Be particularly careful with share scams. The the monetary satisfactions you gain with your bleating words will be outweighed by the price you pay. Image: the oracle at Delphi. When visitors consulted the oracle, the priestess would utter a few enigmatic words that seemed full of meaning and import. No one obeyed the words of the oracle. They held power over life and death. Authority: never start moving your own lips and teeth before the subordinates do. The longer I keep quiet, the sooner others move their lips and teeth. As they move their lips and teeth, I can thereby understand their real intentions. It the sovereign is not mysterious. The ministers will find opportunity to take and take. Reversal: there are times when it is unwise to be silent. Silence can arouse suspicion and even insecurity, especially in your superiors. A vague or ambiguous comment can open you up to interpretations you had not bargained for. Silence and saying less than necessary must be practiced with caution. Then, and in the right situation, it is occasionally wiser to imitate the court jester who plays the fool but he is smarter than the king. He talks and entertains, and no one suspects that he is more than just a fool. Also, words can sometimes act as a kind of smoke screen for any deceptions you might practice by bending your listener ear with talk. you can distract and mesmerize them. The more you talk, in fact, the less suspicious of you they become. The verbals are not perceived as sly and manipulative, but as helpless and unsophisticated. This is the reverse of the silent policy employed by the powerful. By talking more and making yourself appear weaker and less elegant than you mark, you can practice deception with greater ease. So, guys, this fact is always say less than necessary. So, go on next fact. Next law is 5. So much depends on the reputation. Guard it with your life. Judgment. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. Through reputation alone, you can intimidate and win. Once it slips, however, you are vulnerable and will be attacked on all sides. Make your reputation unassailable. Always be alert to potential attacks and thwart them before they happen. Meanwhile, learn to destroy your enemies by opening holes in their own reputations. Then stand aside and let public opinion hang them. Observance of the law. 1. During China's War of the Three Kingdoms, the great General Zhuge Liang, leading the force of the Shu Kingdom, dispatched his vast army to a distant camp while he rested in a small town with a handful of soldiers. Suddenly, sentinels hurried in with the alarming news that an enemy forces of over 150,000 troops under Sima Yi was approaching with only 100 men to defend him. Zhuge Liang's situation was hopeless. The enemy would finally capture his renowned leader without lamenting his fate or wasting time trying to figure out how he had been caught. Liang ordered his troops to take down their flags, throw open the city gates and hide. He himself then took a scent on the most visible part of the city's wall, wearing the tallest robe. He lit some incense, strummed his lute, and began to chant. Minutes later, he could see the vast enemy army approaching, an endless phalanx of soldiers. Pretending not to notice them, he continued to sing and play the lute. Soon the army stood at the town gates. At its head was Sima Yi, who instantly recognized the man on the wall. Even so, as his soldiers attached to enter the unguarded town through its open gates, Sima Yi hesitated, held them back, and studied Liang on the wall. Then he ordered an immediate and speedy retreat. Interpretation. Zhuge Liang was commonly known as the Sleeping Dragon. His expertise in the War of the Three Kingdoms were legendary. Once a man claiming to be a disaffected army lieutenant came to his camp, offering help and information. Liang instantly recognized the situation as a setup. This man was a false disaster and should be beheaded at the last minute though. As the axe was about to fall, Liang stopped the execution and offered to spare the man's life if he agreed to become a double agent. Grateful and terrified, the man agreed and began supplying false information to the enemy. Liang won battle after battle. On another occasion, Liang stole a military seal and created false documents dispatching his enemy's troops and distant locations. Once the troops had dispersed, he was able to capture 3 cities so that he controlled any entries corridor of the enemy's kingdom. He also once tricked the enemy into believing one of its best generals was a traitor, forcing the men to escape and join forces with Liang. The sleeping dragon carefully cultivated his reputation of being the cleverest man in China, one who always had a trick up his sleeve. As powerful as any weapon, this reputation struck fear into his enemy. Sima Yi had fought against Chico Liang dozens of times and knew him well. When he came on the empty city with Liang praying on the wall, he was stunned. The toast ropes, the chanting, the inquis. This had to be a game of intimidation. The man was obviously taunting him, daring him to walk into a trap. The game was so obvious that for one moment it crossed his mind that Liang actually was alone and desperate, but so great was his fear to Liang that he dared not risk finding out. Such is the power of the reputation. It can put a vast army on the defensive, even force them into retreat without a single arrow being fired. For as Cicero says, even those who argue against fame still want the books they write against it to bear their name in the title and hope to become famous for despising it. Everything else is subject to barter. When we'll let our friends have our goods and our lives if need be, but a case of sharing our fame and making someone else the gift of our reputation is hardly to be found. So guys, today's session is complete now. Next session is tomorrow. Thank you.